Where am I?
This is the deep mind. You are being rehearsed,
Rehearsed for what?
for that which is to be revealed. It will be a long time coming, before we will have arrived at the fullness of eternal truth, beauty, and goodness of God. In the meantime, our will to ascend, brings us to an ascension career of our relative choosing. Until such time as we stand on the Isle of Paradise in heaven, it will be impossible for us to grasp the whole truth and nothing but the truth. As such, we are here now compelled to make choices which will lead us ever and anon through the ascension schools of thinking, feeling, doing, and onward. And such schooling may begin right here in this life, relative to some near or distant destiny of ascension. From the perspective of God the Father, it is not so much a matter of what we do as what we become. Sonship to Him. Yet, from the supreme perspective, it is not just a matter of what we become, but what we do in the process. The rectification of these seemingly divergent perspectives is found in the fundamental principle for all experiential creatures of time and space. That one can only truly do as one truly is, and one can only truly be as one truly does. This paradox, when analyzed to its most logical conclusion, leads us to the understanding that man can neither be nor do anything alone. It is by this understanding that we further observe the ministerial and administrative efforts of others to be a necessity for soul growth. The myriad religious doctrines, dogmas, beliefs and experiences of this world, do not spring from the intent of achieving the impossible task of revealing to man the unfathomably quintessential reality of things. Rather do every one of these programs have as their unconscious agenda to get those who are so favorably disposed to make choices, to engage the process of work and responsibility within our Father's kingdom, the inner fellowship of men, angels, and spirits, wherein their awakening souls reside with such potentials of purpose. But such labors are not to be in conflict with the Creator's essential teachings of what all who would survive must willingly learn sooner or later. Rather should they be practical training with regard to what those who strive to embody the spirit of such teachings may begin to do now. Man, without God, is hardly a spirit, yet the Spirit of God must minister to man through mind. This fact lends itself to perception of the ascending and descending reality of a spiritual, or spiritualizing aspect of man, known variously on earth as the planetary soul, the corporeal spirit, the astral body, the causal body, the light body, the aura, as well as many other cultural conventions of enumerating a higher body and realm of being. This is not New Age wisdom. Rather is this old knowledge which happens to bear relevance to the new and living way. It has been said that, as a man thinks, so is he. For these transcendent or supermaterial orders of man's being, often considered to be blended with the being of higher orders, this is a very literal truth. The higher body of man, even while perceived as no more than a figment by most, can and does take on the form and substance of others in accordance with the paradise pattern that pervades all. While a teaching may be assessed according to how well it fosters such transformations, assessments should not be undertaken without due consideration of what purpose and function such transformations may actually serve in our Father's kingdom as it prevails inwardly in this life as well as how it shall prevail outwardly in the next. The mind of man, like its source, is hardly located within the physical body, but to the extent that mind can be so individuated as to be a temporary possession of any one person, such a discretely personal mind is a higher body functioning within the manifold levels of planetary consciousness. As the thoughts and feelings of man are adjusted, the shape, substance, and function of his own higher being within the grand economy of consciousness, of which he can hardly be conscious for long, is augmented. As the heart and mind is so transformed as to identify more and more consciously with higher realities of perception and performance, a place is made within for those higher realities to be present, and it is only by such inner transformation within the evolving beings of time and space, that the Supreme Being, along with all agencies and exigencies in service thereto, can become more manifest to the consciousness of man. It is presently tolerated that this is being conceptualized as channeling, when perceived in a certain way, or conceived of certain circumstances, but the reality of things is far more intimately co-creative than that, and it will be even more so as we ascend. Every program or teaching may be looked upon in light of this budding metaphysical concept of being, not for factual accuracy, as the facts alone are hardly sufficient to convey the truth of things, but for a more mature approach to addressing the broadly varying narrative techniques now or so recently in play in the world. The question is not merely what they are trying to get us to think by believing, but what they are trying to get us to experience by doing. And, of course, there is nothing that we can do for God outwardly that is not by so becoming more like God inwardly in that very aspect of doing for which God has created entire orders of being to accomplish perfectly and perfectingly. It is by this imperfect striving of ours, so commensurate with the perfect activities of higher beings, that we attract the presence of such being to function, in living and working association with our personality in the transient life vehicles of our personality expression, so as to be, ourselves, rendered personally contactable, knowable, and experienceable. This process of identifying with higher being, literally draws down the presence of such being to be present, with our being as the material anchor or lightening rod. While this may seem far-fetched, it is but one way of portraying what is referred to as spiritual pressure from above, which might otherwise be confused with psychic force.
But in all of this that you have said, still are we left with the mystery of how to actually put this personal awareness into action.
There may be as many techniques as there are persons, types, and circumstances within which to so conceive of them. But what we will notice to be of greatest consistency throughout all of them is the need to get over oneself, or at least to get over the sense of oneself that is no more than material. The ego entity of human identity. But this alone can only serve to liberate you from the flesh, which is not necessarily the same as identification with the spirit. While the former may be determined by conscious labors, the latter is determined by the fruit of such labor, which is often quite unconscious in manifestation. Such as is this transaction.
What is that?
Time to wake up.
Is the rehearsal finished?
No. It is time for the rehearsal to begin.